Hello, good evening. I'm Soraya Mia and you're watching AWANI Tonight. 76 people were evacuated from the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Academy and the Malaysian Institute of Integrity building at Jalan Duta today. This comes after a landslide destroyed a guard post near the academy's entrance. No injuries were reported. The disaster, which affected nearly 1,200 square meters of the location, occurred around 1 p.m. today. Sentul District Police officers were stationed some 300 meters from the affected area, prohibiting people to enter the area, citing safety concerns. Authorities said the situation is currently under control, but it is unsure if the vicinity of the compound is stable. Investigations into the cause of the disaster are underway, but initial findings by Public Works Department detected the possible cause of the landslide was a broken underground pipe. Gabungan Parti Sarawak GPS MPs have not been approached by anyone to topple the unity government. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Fadilah Yusof said he was not aware of any such move, adding that GPS was now focused on Malaysia's economic recovery and not on politicking.
I have not been approached. Nobody approached us. So we are just focusing right now. As you know, GPS is focusing on the work to make sure that Malaysia will be back into the glory days. Okay? Economic recovery is our focus. What we want is a stable government, a strong government that will focus on putting back Malaysia into the right track in terms of economic recovery, focusing the well-being of people, and of course the wealth of the country. Only then Malaysia will be back on track.
Fadilah was responding to a question citing a news report on Monday that there was a new plot to unseat Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, which could involve forcing by-elections.
Datuk Dr. Muhammad Radzi Abu Hassan was appointed new Health Director General effective April 21st. Health Minister Dr. Zaliha Mustafa announced this today, saying that Radzi was chosen based on his qualifications and experience in the country's healthcare service. Radzi, 58, was previously Health Deputy Director General in Research and Technical Support. He succeeded Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah, who retired last Friday after 35 years in the ministry. Zaliha said she was confident that with his experience, knowledge, expertise and credibility, he can give the best service to ensure the national health reform objectives are implemented. Radzi had served as Medical Department Head at Hospital Sultanah Bahia in Kedah, Kedah State Medical Coordination Head and Kedah Clinical Research Centre Head, among others. He was also the Gastroenterology and Hepatology Service Head and Chairperson of Accreditation for this field from 2013 to 2021. In other news, tremors were felt in the west coast of Peninsular Malaysia after a 7.3 magnitude earthquake struck West Sumatra in the early hours of the morning. The quake hit around 3 a.m. local time or 4 a.m. in Malaysia, triggering a tsunami warning that was lifted 2 hours later. In a statement, Met Malaysia said the epicenter of the earthquake was 85 kilometers northwest of Siberut, Indonesia, at a depth of 48 kilometers. Local authorities initially instructed residents of affected areas to move away from shores, but allowed them to gradually return home later in the day. Several aftershocks were recorded, and a tide gauge recorded an 11-centimeter rise in water levels after the main quake. The National Disaster Mitigation Agency has urged the public to stay alert and ensure that home exits remain unblocked in case there is a need to rush outside again. Meanwhile, 30 Malaysians who were stranded in Khartoum, Sudan, have safely arrived at the Sudan port. Foreign Minister Datuk Sri Zamri Abdul Kadir says the evacuees endured a 30-hour journey to reach the port after being brought out of the capital, where they will be now transported to a safe zone.
Zamri said Wisma Putra will opt for the next immediate available modes of transport, either by air or sea, to transfer Malaysians to the next country. Malaysia's special forces also brought out 26 other nationals during the evacuation process. He added that the evacuees will be transported to either Cairo, Egypt or Jeddah, Saudi Arabia before being flown back to Malaysia. On Monday, Zambri said the mission to rescue Malaysians trapped in Khartoum after clashes broke out had entered a critical phase. A total of 32 Malaysians were reported to be in Sudan in 7 different areas of the country.
A ceasefire in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, is still ongoing since it took effect at midnight. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the 72-hour truce was agreed between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces after 48 hours of negotiations. This is the 4th attempt to stop the fighting in Sudan, which began on April 15th. Previous truces include one to mark Aidilfitri celebrations were not observed. At least 400 people have been killed in the hostilities, with many others told to stay inside, while food and water supplies have been running low. There are hopes that the ceasefire will allow foreign governments to continue evacuations out of the country. Although Blinken said some convoys trying to move people out had encountered robbery and looting. It is estimated that tens of thousands of people, both Sudanese citizens and those from neighboring countries, have fled because of the unrest. In light of the 72-hour ceasefire, the UK government began evacuating British passport holders and immediate family members today. Military flights will depart from an airfield outside Khartoum, and priority will be given to family groups with children, the elderly, and those with medical conditions.
Foreign Secretary James Cleverly said the government has started contacting nationals directly and providing routes for departure out of the country. It is estimated that around 4,000 British nationals are currently in Sudan. The government said other exit routes were being considered, with 2 British military ships prepared for a possible evacuation. Other countries have also scrambled to evacuate their diplomats and civilians as fighting continues to rage in the densely populated parts of the capital. France has airlifted 491 people from 36 countries, including 12 EU nations, while Italy said it had completed the evacuation of all its nationals who had asked to leave.
We'll take a quick break. Stay with us.
Kepada anda yang merancang perjalanan untuk beraya, muat turun aplikasi Plus. Manfaatkan waktu dan ikuti perkembangan trafik semasa untuk perjalanan yang lebih lancar. Jika anda berdepan dengan sebarang masalah, hubungi nombor yang tertera atau klik butang SOS di aplikasi Plus. Nikmati kemudahan di RNR termasuklah bayaran tanpa tunai. Plus akan memastikan perjalanan anda sentiasa berada dalam keadaan yang selamat. Untuk maklumat lanjut, layari www.plus.com.my.
Welcome back. U.S. President Joe Biden has announced he will seek re-election for presidency in 2024. Currently aged 80 and the oldest president in U.S. history, he is set for a rematch of the 2020 polls with Donald Trump, who has also launched his bid to return to the White House.
In a video announcing the launch of his campaign, Biden described next year's election as a fight for democracy and personal freedom. He said abortion rights, voting rights, and the social safety net will be among the most important issues on the ballot in November 2024. Biden's Democrats performed better than expected in last year's midterm elections, meaning he is unlikely to face much competition from within his own party. In the 2 years since he took over from Trump, Biden won Congress's approval for billions of dollars in federal funds for new infrastructure and to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. He also oversaw the lowest levels of unemployment since 1969 and a 40-year high in inflation. However, a survey found that 70% of Americans and just over half of Democrats believe he should not run again, with the main reason being his age. He will be 86 by the end of a prospective second term, almost a decade higher than the average U.S. male's life expectancy.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump is facing a civil trial over allegations that he raped a female columnist nearly 3 decades ago. Jury selection is due to begin today in a federal court in New York, adding to Trump's mounting legal troubles.
E. Jean Carroll said Trump had sexually assaulted her in the changing room of a New York department store in the mid-1990s. She claimed that Trump defamed her after she went public with the allegations years later. 79-year-old Carroll first sued Trump for defamation in 2019, but was unable to include the rape claim because the statute of limitations for the alleged offense had expired. But in November last year, a new law came into force in New York that gives sexual assault victims in the state a 1-year window to sue their alleged abusers, even if the abuse happened a long time ago. Trump became the first sitting or former president to be charged with a crime when he was arrested in hush money case earlier this month. He is also being investigated for his efforts to overturn his 2022 election loss in the southern state of Georgia, his alleged mishandling of classified White House documents, and his involvement in the storming of the U.S. Capitol in January 2021.
At least 17 people were killed in 2 explosions at a counter-terrorism office in northwest Pakistan. Police said there were no evidence of a terrorist attack and that it may have been an electrical fault that ignited ammunition in the center. Most of the dead are police officers.
The explosion happened in the Swat Valley, which was controlled by militants before they were forced out in 2009. More than 50 people were injured and buildings have collapsed. 4 of the dead are civilians. No evidence of an attack from outside has been established so far. The Pakistani Taliban group has carried out several attacks targeting security forces in recent months, but has not claimed involvement in these explosions.
According to a recent poll by UCSI among 1,000 students, half of those surveyed said they do not plan to continue studying after SPM. And out of that number, 34% expressed interest to become social media influencers and affiliates upon leaving school. We speak to UCSI's Dr. Eugene Peck for deeper insights into the survey and discuss if a career in social media can generate sustainable income.
Today, when you look at the reasons why the youngsters are into influencer marketing and all that, it's simply because of the glamour that they may get. They love to have likes, and the more likes you have, the more valuable you are as a key opinion leader, right? Whether you are actually being an influencer in the food industry or even in any other industries like cosmetics, beauty schools, and etc. So first thing first is that they have the glamour. Then we can see that a lot of them actually get a good income or revenue from doing this social media marketing. In my own experience recently, where a key AOL, a key opinion leader actually came over to one of the cafes to actually do a content. What they call it, content marketing with the cafeteria. We find that this particular KOL actually has quite a good sum of income, and each shots that the KOL did, the KOL was paid 1,000 ringgit.
While content creators and influencers are part of a new wave of entrepreneurship, Eugene has advised against foregoing education completely to pursue a career in social media.
Now, my take on this is that, yes, if you want to be a social influencer, it can be done, but let us finish what we need to do as a youth, and that is to complete our studies. As a social influencer, there is no guarantee that you will get the revenue in the long term. Now, what if in between you may lose your followers, right? And therefore you have nothing to go back onto or nothing to ban onto. So basically, if you continue with your education, once you get what you need to have in terms of your qualifications, then if you wish, you might want to take this as a part-time job of yours. And in the future, who knows, you may be successful on that, and that's where you can have a career change.
That's all we have for you on Awani Tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Saraya Mia, and we'll see you soon.